Hi, this is Peter Diadamo, and I'm here to demonstrate the utilization of the Cluster app, which is the template explorer and template editor that allows you to use pre-shrunk templates as a way of being able to produce smart, dedicated, limited outputs for your patient. And like any template, you can produce those yourself in a template editor. You can look and see if other people in the Opus community have released their own templates for your use. And the idea being that if we have this crowdsourcing environment, then we'll have lots of cool templates that can make our jobs, lives, and patients' experience of Opus easier. So here we are in Opus. I mean, you have to be logged in, of course. I'm just was playing around in Wanderer, so I'm here. I think the thing we should do here is to realize that we're going to go to Curation, Templates, and Template Explorer. And what this will do is show me the templates that are available. Now, these are the templates that I am the author of because there's nobody else at this point. But for instance, if let's say someone else had produced a template that was available, they had ticked a thing to allow it to be publicly available, that would show up here. However, you can only edit your own templates, the ones that you've developed. So one of the things we can do here is the famous Opus smart table format. Is we see here we have a basic methylation profile template and an estrogen activity template. The basic methylation profile, really, I'm sure somebody could come up with a much better methylation template than me. I was just throwing stuff in there to see if the software worked. But the way that you kind of work with the Template Explorer is twofold. For instance, you'll notice I have a patient uploaded here, client CLD. So when I've got an active client in Opus, I can assign these templates to that client. So for instance, if I wanted to actually use the client and produce a template-based report for this client, I would tick the box here to assign the basic methylation profile to patient CLD, and then hit this button here, and now this particular client, when we run a template report, will actually have the methylation profile template assigned to them. So let's go back to Template Explorer, and we should see, as we are here, that the box is ticked. What does this mean? Well, you can actually have more than one template being published at the same time to the client. So let's say we had another template that we wanted to put in this as well. For instance, I don't know, some thing having to do with maybe an ancillary function of methylation. So in this case now, when we go run the template profile report, the methylation profile template, when we run the template report, it will be using this template. You can also, if you are the author, you can click this button here, and what will happen through the magic of television is you will be taken to the template editor. And the template editor is essentially where you create a template. So for instance, you can see here, I will go through this with you. This particular template is now has some basic information. So the first thing you have to do with your template is give it a name. Basic methylation profile, detoxification profile with emphasis on xenobiotics, estrogen metabolism template. You can put in tags that are separated by semicolons, and as the template library builds, you will be able to have more of a search function with that. You can link it to specific types of pathologies. Here I've linked it to homocystinuria, and you can put in a little bit of a description of the template here, so you can see that I've put in a small 2-line description of what methylation is. Obviously, it's a whole lot more than that, but as I said before, I'm not the world's greatest methylation guru, and B, I'm really just trying to prove that the whole software interface works. So now what we've done is we put the basic template details, a name, some tags, and now here's the button, the magic button. If you tick this button here, publish template, that will allow the community to use your template. So obviously, until you tick that button, you can be working on the template and using it for your own clients, or perhaps maybe never using it until you get it just right. But at a certain point, if you just feel like you're just absolutely so happy with this and you want to share it with the world, you can tick this button and the template now becomes available to the wider community. So that's an important button, especially as we try to build crowdsource wisdom, and people who have different areas of expertise build simple templates. For instance, we'll probably make a kind of a demonstration template. And we'll do a template from scratch, which will be based on, I don't know, maybe circadian rhythms or something like that. We'll see. So anyway, in this box here, this panel here is all the basic template details. So what can you put in a template? Well, you can put in a gene. You can put in specific SNPs. You can put in any of the maps, so you can put in any of the algorithms, and you can put in any number of different agents. So let's take a walk through this. And the ones that are outlined in blue, these are now what are currently involved in the template. So if I click on COMT, I now see that I have identified in COMT 2 SNPs checked off here, ticked off in these boxes, that are going to be part of my template. So for instance, in this case, RS4633 and RS4680 will be part of the template. There's an option here where you can use all the SNPs of COMT. So in other words, if you don't feel like ticking all of these, you can just tick this box here and use all the particular SNPs. I don't advocate that, because the nature of templates are that they're very, very highly structured and highly specific. So in this case, I mean, we have a lot of SNPs for COMT and Opus, and some of them are more significant than others for certain things. In this case, I actually identified those two. For instance, if we go to CBS, the same thing. I've identified these particular SNPs, and the menu kind of, if you click on it, it's called a I forget the name of it, accordion type menu. So it expands when you click on it. Here we're using the secretor status in our methylation panel. Here's the infamous MTHFR. We're using a couple of SNPs there. But here's a cute little box. If you look here, you can see that in gray there's a nucleotide here. And the reason that it's showing you the nucleotide is that's the currently recognized risk allele in Opus. So in this case, for this particular MTHFR SNP here, the risk allele is A. And here's some identifying information, and here's the power factors currently in Opus. The reason that this is here is that there may be in your world a reason to actually identify the opposing allele as the actionable allele. So for instance, let's say that Opus considers A the risk allele in its calculations, but you have some new study that shows that the other allele is associated with something beneficial or something completely different. Well, you can change the allele here to the allele that you want, and Opus, when it does its calculations as to the genotype, when it draws the various colored boxes and things, it will use the allele that you gave it. If you don't put anything here, Opus will, the template editor will just simply use the default Opus risk allele, and away you go. So this is, and of course this is a scrollable box. You'd probably be familiar with these from the dashboard. So if you need to find a gene, there they are. They're all alphabetized. And so if I needed to look up something here for a glutathione or something like that, here it is. Away you go. So the first thing, if you had the most basic SNP, you probably could throw a few genes or SNPs in there, and you'd already have a workable template. The other elements of a template can be maps. So for instance, I've identified here in this methylation template that I want to have the catecholamine map for the client and the 1-carbon metabolism map for the client output in the template report. Right next to it are algorithms. I, in this case, have identified 5 algorithms that I want to include in my methylation profile template when it goes to the client, when it goes to the report. So these are methylation algorithms, and I've identified several of these. And You can simply select these based on which one you want. If you need a aid to memory about the template, you can do that. So in essence, basically, now what we've done is we've been able to create a template, migrate template for methylation, which now involves genes and SNPs. It now has 2 maps. It has 5 algorithms. And we can now go on to the final portion of this, which is identifying agents that might want to be discussed. Now, you can simply have agents in here that you select. So for instance, if I wanted to look for valerian, I can just do the standard valerian and it will autocomplete, and there it is. Okay? So now that automatically tells the template editor when I save this that I'm going to just include a discussion of valerian in the report. But with this template editor, you can do something really cool. You notice how these are paired, agent 1 and agent 2, and then in between them there's a little box that says versus. So what you can do with the template editor, which is kind of cool, is that if you want to tick this box, Opus will run analysis and compare the 2 paired agents given the outcome of the client data as applied to the components of the template and tell you which one of the 2 is better indicated. So for instance, here I'm asking the template editor to pull up information on methylcobalamin, pull up information on folinic acid, and I want you to do a comparison and give me which one is going to be the stronger indicator given the metrics of the situation. Here I'm looking at a similar thing where I'm comparing betaine to SAMe by, again, just putting these together. So these pair together, and once you tick the versus box, you wind up with Opus telling you which one's better indicated. Now here where I've added valerian, I didn't either, if I put another agent here, it would just be an agent. It wouldn't be compared until I tick this box. So right now it's just going to put information in on valerian, but it's not going to do any comparison work. So as we go to the top here, I can save the edit to the template. Since I'm not particularly interested in valerian as far as methylation goes, I'm not going to do that. But there are some other things. So for instance, let's look at some options you have. You can, for instance, have to start someplace in this world. You can create a new template, right, which basically, to create a new template, all you need to do is supply this box. So if I tick on this box here, it's going to give me a starting point where I can put in the information and start that as a new template. So let's go back here on the other hand. All right. I can also add, there are a lot of advanced details in this template. For instance, if you just did what I've outlined to you, it works just beautiful. However, let's say you have like some incredible wisdom about a particular thing that you need to share with the world that's not in Opus. You can go to the advanced details menu and add in specific details. Now, these are all the things that are in the template, okay, in this case, and it's identified. Here are specific SNPs. Here is a specific algorithm. You can add into these things a specific detail. So, for instance, let's say you don't particularly want the Opus description of the COMT SNP RS4633. You can add your own. See, I added a description here that says it's a bigly SNP. Now, for instance, the advantage of this is that when Opus sees that you've added information, Opus will actually use your information in lieu of its own. So let's say you just want to have something that's totally related to the particular template that you're working on. For instance, because COM can be involved in estrogen metabolism, it can be involved in methylation, it could be involved in stress reactions. So maybe because your particular template is only relating to one of those, you really want to have some text that's going to be relevant only for that particular elements of the template that you're describing here. So, and you can also tell Opus that you really want to give it either strong or moderate or slight emphasis, and Opus will tend to, that when it prints the template report, it will tend to emphasize it a little bit more if you're really making you want to make a strong statement about it. So the advantage of that is you get to override. Now, if you don't particularly care about putting in advanced descriptive information that would override Opus, Opus will use its own default data when it comes to printing information on things. And a lot of times that'll work just fine. So that's where we got to the point that we are now, which is let's go to where we were before. For instance, if you remember, so really, I think the important thing to realize is that there's only two full screen parts of this. If you go to template, you see them both here. Curation templates. Where is it? Go away there. Thank you. Okay, so you can create a new or edit a template. You can go to the Template Explorer, and you can print the active template. You see, now I got this option because I was in the Template Explorer, and I selected a template. So all of a sudden, I got a new option, which says, do you want to print this darn thing? Okay? So most of the time, you're going to be in the Template Explorer unless you're like really, really into like doing template development, in which case basically you'll use the template editor. Most of the time you're just going to be looking at the available templates and deciding whether or not you want to assign those to your client. Once you've assigned the template to the client and save it, all of a sudden you'll get this option, which is Print Active Template. Okay, well, at that point we print the active template and we get what essentially looks like an Opus client report with some slight differences. Okay, so I will put up a PDF of this that you'll be able to access, but you will be able to, oh, by the way, here's the an analytical thing. Okay, so one of the cool things about this was we did some head-to-head comparisons. We were comparing methylcobalamin to folinic acid. The result was folinic acid appeared to be better indicated than methylcobalamin. However, again, life is very rarely completely one way or the other. Opus felt impelled to tell you that methylcobalamin may have a special indication, however, due to a heterozygous SNP on FUT2. So really, in English, what it's saying is that this person is actually an ABO secretor, which might impact their propensities for being able to assimilate vitamin B12, which might give special indications on a need for B12 independent of doing the head-to-head. In this case, when we compared betaine to acetylmethionine not only was a better indicator, but there were even special indications which were making that argument even more potent. So in this case, if you were going to compare betaine and acetylmethionine in this case would have won. You'll notice valerian didn't show up here, and the wise and astute among you will know that that's the reason is I did not save when I was in the template editor. So it was the way it was when I loaded it, but none of those things I was ticking on to prove a point are actually been saved. Here's your catecholamine maps. And it's a very discrete thing. So at a certain point, you'll see that some discussions of a bigly SNP on COMT, but the reality is that I've now, in, 5 minutes or 6 minutes, taken you through an app that's taken me the better part of a half of a year to write. I'm sure there are things that are going to be discovered about it that are going to need little tweaks. Anytime you do anything new, there's always glitches and bugs and things. And so if you're doing a thing with the template editor or something that's not working in the report, shoot me a message either via the customer service link inside of Opus or from the Facebook Datapunk page. Things to come. I really like the idea of crowdsourcing, and what I'd like to do, is give you the option in time. So now, let's say I make the world greatest methylation template by Peter D'Adamo. I could benefit by people giving me feedback. So one of the nice things I'm thinking of adding is that you tick a box and says, allow for public discussion. So for instance, at that point, and I come along and, I do my world's greatest methylation profile, and my friend comes along and says, you left out an important SNP here I think you really should consider. We could have a kind of a Facebook-like communication back and forth that would be public knowledge, so that in addition to perhaps making my template better, people learn. Really, the greatest thing about Opus is that it's about the learning environment as much as it is about the discovery process for the patient. Discovery process of the patient is important But the thing that fuels the quality of the discovery process is the learning experience of the practitioner in using the program, which means that the more you learn, the better the discovery process, the more you learn. So that pretty much is what you need to know about the template editor. By all means, if there's any discussion, let's move to the Opus23 Facebook page or the Datapunk Facebook page. I am really excited about this because, number one, I know for a fact I would love to have a sleep chronobiology circadian rhythm template with PER2 and melanocortin receptor and clock and a whole bunch of other things, throwing in some algorithms, maybe putting in the circadian rhythm map. And you can see just how this is going to just revolutionize everything, because we can now, or a menopause template, andropause template, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm hopeful that, this will really just, again, show us all what the capabilities of this wonderful software package can be and how expandable. I mean, it can be infinitely expandable to do all sorts of cool things. And probably the next time we talk, you'll hear me introducing the metabolome component that I'm working on, which I will now be able to go back and work on. Hooray, the Icarus module. So until then, this is Peter Diadamo, and thank you for being a Opus person, and I hope this has been helpful. And again, happy genomic surfing, as far as they say. Goodbye.